Go ahead, honey, use mom's card. She's got around $130,000 saved, my son said, handing my card to his wife without asking me. She headed straight to the mall, loading up on electronics, clothes and imported perfumes. When the cashier finished ringing everything up, $82,000, she inserted the card, glanced at the screen and said, "Sorry, but this card is." I never imagined the child I carried for 9 months, the one I sacrificed absolutely everything for, would become the very person to try and steal my future. But there he was, my son Edward, telling his wife Grace to use my $130,000. Every single penny of my life's work. Like it was pocket change. All because, in his words, she's old now. What does she need all that money for? I was in the kitchen, flour dusting my hands as I kneaded dough, when those words sliced through the wall and hit me like a physical blow. Honey, use mom's card. She's got like $130,000 saved up. Edward's voice. Then Grace's saccharine manipulative tone. Are you sure, sweetie? She won't get mad. And his reply, the one that made the floor open up beneath me. My mom won't say a thing. She lives here for free, eats our food, uses our utilities. It's the least she can do. Help us out a little. Besides, she's old now. What does she need all that money saved for? We have expenses. We have a life ahead of us. I dropped the rolling pin with a thud. My own son. The child I nursed and raised alone after his father left us. He was handing over my bank card, my life's blood, as if it were his own. As if that $130,000, which cost me 40 years of backbreaking work, of ruined knees from scrubbing other people's floors, of tired eyes from sewing until dawn, belonged to him. My heart hammered in my chest, a frantic drumbeat I could hear in my ears. But I wouldn't cry. Not anymore. I'd cried enough in this house. This house. The one I helped him buy 20 years ago. He'd convinced me to sell my small, hard-earned home to help him with the down payment. You can live here for free, Mom, he'd promised. Free. What a joke. I lived for free in a house I helped finance. I ate for free from food I cooked every single day. I used for free utilities I paid for with my meager $500 monthly pension, handing it over in full, never keeping a cent for myself. Then I heard Grace's footsteps, the jingle of her keys, the rustle of her purse. She was heading to the mall, my card in her hand, with the pin Edward had given her, accessing every dollar I had ever sweat for. I'm off to the mall. Josephine, need anything? She chirped, that fake kindness she reserved for Edward, pretending we were friends. As if she hadn't systematically taken my son from me, piece by piece, all these years. No, dear, thank you. I managed, my voice firm, not daring to turn around, not letting her see the storm brewing in my eyes. The door closed, the car engine started, its sound fading down the street. I sat down, looking at my hands. 68-year-old hands covered in wrinkles and spots. Hands that had worked without rest since I was 14. I remembered every single one of those $130,000. Every bill had a story, a sacrifice, a surrender. The first $10,000 came from 3 years as a seamstress, working 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., 6 days a week, making $20 a day, which I kept in an envelope under my mattress. I ate rice and beans, never bought new shoes. Another $20,000 came from cleaning jobs on Sundays, my only supposed day of rest. 8 hours in rich families' mansions for $50. I cleaned 3 houses every Sunday, saving every penny. The rest? Years and years of having no life, no new clothes, no salons, no restaurants, saying no to everything that cost money. While other women my age traveled or treated themselves, I counted pennies, saving them in the bank account I opened 30 years ago. For what? To have my own place someday. A small, modest apartment where no one could tell me I was living for free. Where I could close my door and be the master of my own space, my peace, my life. That was all I wanted. It wasn't much to ask for after 68 years. But now my son, my own son, had just handed over my card as if I didn't exist. As if my life, my effort were worth nothing. Edward sauntered into the kitchen, phone in hand, barely glancing at me. He poured himself water, leaned against the fridge. Mom, I have a meeting at 3, I need to eat quick. He said, not a question but a command. Almost, I replied, my legs shaky as I returned to the dough. Hey Mom, Grace went to the mall. We needed a few things for the house. He didn't look up. As if it was the most normal thing in the world. I didn't answer. I just kneaded the dough harder, feeling the anger and pain swirling inside me. Did you hear what I said? He asked, looking up. His voice etched with irritation. Yes, I heard, I said, not turning. And any problem? He pressed, as if I were the one doing something wrong. I turned then, meeting his gaze. Those eyes that once held love and admiration now showed only impatience and annoyance. Should I have a problem? I asked, my voice calm, though inside I was a roaring volcano. No, of course not. It's just some things for the house. Besides, Mom, you live here. It's normal for you to help with expenses from time to time, he said, dismissing me, returning to his phone. Help with expenses? He said that as if I didn't give him my entire pension every month. As if I didn't cook, clean, wash, and iron for this entire family without a single dollar of pay. as if I hadn't dedicated the last 20 years of my life to serving them. I understand, Mom, was all I said, going back to my dough. Edward left the kitchen. I looked out the window at the small garden I tended, the roses I planted, the tomatoes I grew, all in a house my son claimed was his alone. In that moment, a decision solidified in my heart. I was not going to stand by and watch them steal the only thing I had left. I was not going to let Grace spend in one day what took me 40 years to save. And I was definitely not going to continue living in a house where I was treated like a maid, not a mother. I finished lunch, wiped my hands on my apron, and went straight to my room. I locked the door, pulled out my old phone, dialed the bank, the number etched into my memory. My heart pounded. National Bank, Linda speaking. How can I help you? A friendly voice. Good morning. I need to block my debit card immediately, I said, my voice firm. After confirming my details, answering security questions, the operator asked, was there a problem with the card? Did you lose it or was it stolen? I chose my words carefully. Let's just say someone has it without my authorization. Perfect. I am now blocking the card immediately. Would you like us to send a new card to your home address? Linda explained. Yes, please, but don't send it to this address. I'll pick it up in person at the branch next week, I said, thinking fast. I didn't want Edward or Grace to intercept it. No problem, Mrs. Josephine. Your card was blocked at 11:02 a.m. Anything else? No, that's everything. Thank you very much. I hung up with trembling hands. I sat on the edge of my twin bed, the one Edward gave me, claiming a larger one wouldn't fit in my tiny room, the original pantry. 10 by 10 feet. A bed, a small closet, a nightstand. That was my entire space in a 4-bedroom house where Grace had a walk-in closet bigger than my room, and Edward had his private office. I never complained, because he was my son, because I loved him, because I thought one day he would see me as his mother again, not a burden. How naive I was. Then Edward's phone rang in the living room. His voice answered, then silence. Then his voice got louder, more agitated. What do you mean it's blocked? That's impossible. My mom never blocks anything. She doesn't even know how to use those bank things. Frustration dripped from his tone. I held my breath. Grace, wait, let me call my mom, he said. Seconds later, a knock on my door. Mom, are you in there? I need to talk to you urgently. Coming, I called, waiting a beat before opening it, pretending to be busy. There he was, phone in hand, that anxious look he got when things didn't go his way. Mom, Grace just called me from the mall. She says your card isn't working, that it's blocked. Did you block it? He asked, direct, no beating around the bush. I looked him in the eyes. For the first time in 20 years, I wasn't afraid to tell him the truth. Yes, I blocked it, I replied calmly. What? Why would you do that? Grace is at the checkout with a cart full of things. She's being completely embarrassed. Edward's voice rose. I didn't give her permission to use my card. That money is mine, I said, maintaining my composure. Mom, don't start with that now. Grace was just going to buy a few things we need for the house. It's not a big deal. Call the bank and unblock the card right now. He ordered, that authoritarian tone he'd perfected over the years. No, I said simply. Edward fell silent, staring at me. It was probably the first time in 2 decades I had said no to him. What do you mean no, Mom? You're not understanding. Grace is waiting at the mall with $82,000 worth of purchases. Do you have any idea how embarrassed she is right now? His face was red with anger. $82,000? I repeated slowly, the words burning my throat. Edward, she was going to spend $82,000 of my money without even asking me. It's for the house, Mom. A new TV, a living room set, appliances we need to replace. It's not like it's just for her, he explained, as if that justified everything. I did not authorize those expenses. I saved that money working for 40 years. It's not family money. It's my money, I said, my voice firm, though I was shaking inside. Mom, you live in this house. You use the electricity, the water, the gas, the internet. All of that costs money. Or do you think it's free? It's only fair that you contribute, he said, crossing his arms. I give you my entire pension every month. $500 that you never give back. I cook, I clean, I wash, I iron. Isn't that contributing? I asked, my voice breaking slightly, but I held my ground. That $500 doesn't even cover your food expenses, Mom. You're being selfish. You have $130,000 saved up that you're not using for anything. What do you want it for? What are you going to do with it at your age? He scoffed. Those words, they hurt more than any physical blow. At my age. As if, at 68, I no longer deserve dreams, plans, dignity. That money is to buy my own apartment and stop being a burden to you, I said, and watched Edward's eyes widen in surprise. What are you talking about? Nobody said you're a burden, he replied, but his voice sounded hollow. You just said it 5 minutes ago in the living room. You told Grace I lived here for free, that I ate her food, used her utilities, that I was old and didn't need that much money. Edward's face went pale. He realized I had heard everything. A long, uncomfortable silence. Edward opened his mouth several times but nothing came out. Mom, I didn't mean it like that. He finally mumbled, not meeting my gaze. But you said it. And you thought it. And right now you're more worried about Grace's embarrassment at the mall than the fact that she tried to spend $82,000 of my dollars without my permission. Tears pricked my eyes but I fought them back. She's my wife, Mom. It's normal for me to defend her, he said. And I'm your mother. Isn't it normal for you to defend me? I asked. The question hung in the air, heavy and silent between us. He fell silent again, looking at his phone, then me, then his phone again. I could see the conflict on his face, the battle between his conscience and his loyalty to Grace. Mom, please just unblock the card for today. Grace is already there. She's already picked everything out. We can't leave her looking like a fool. We can talk about this calmly later, he pleaded, trying to manipulate me with guilt. No, Edward. And tell Grace to come home. The three of us need to talk, I said with a firmness I didn't know I possessed. Mom, don't make this bigger than it is. Please, he begged. I didn't do anything. You're the ones who took my card without permission. You're the ones who were planning to spend my money as if it were yours. I'm just protecting what belongs to me. I took a step back and closed my bedroom door. I heard him knock gently. Mom, open up, please. Don't be mad. That voice. The one he used as a boy when he'd done something wrong. The voice that used to melt my heart. Now it just made me angry. I didn't answer. I sat on my bed listening. His footsteps receded. I heard him talking to Grace on the phone in a low voice. He explained I blocked the card. Then through the receiver I heard Grace's screams, so loud they echoed through the house. Your mother is crazy. I'm standing here like an idiot in front of all these people. The cashier already called the manager. This is humiliating. I didn't feel a single ounce of guilt. Let her feel embarrassed. I had felt embarrassed for 20 years. Every time I was introduced as the mom who lives with us, at family gatherings. Every time Grace told her friends I helped around the house, as if I were their maid. Half an hour later, Grace's car pulled up. The door slammed, shaking the walls. Her heels clicked on the hardwood floor. The sound that always announced a storm. Where is your mother? She screeched, her voice full of venom. Grace, calm down. Let's talk about this calmly. Edward tried to appease her. Calmly. Your mother put me through the biggest embarrassment of my life. There were like 20 people watching while the cashier tried to run the card over and over. I had to leave everything there and run out. Grace wailed. I could picture her perfectly, face red, hands flailing. I know, honey, I know. But she heard what we talked about this morning. She's upset, Edward explained. So what if she heard? We told the truth. She lives here without paying for anything. The least she can do is help us when we need it. It's not fair that she has $130,000 saved up while we're killing ourselves working and paying all the bills for this house. Every word confirmed what I already knew. To her, I wasn't a person. I was a source of money. I got up from my bed and opened the door. I walked towards the living room where they stood, Grace still clutching her empty shopping bags, her eyes blazing. Josephine, we need to talk seriously, she said without even a greeting. Yes, we need to talk, I replied calmly, and sat in the armchair. The only spot they allowed me to sit. The large sofa was Grace's exclusive territory. Why did you block your card? Why did you embarrass me like that? She attacked immediately. I didn't embarrass you. You brought it on yourself by trying to spend $82,000 of my money without my permission, I said, looking her directly in the eye. It's not just your money. This is a family. Families share. Grace shouted, taking a step towards me. I am not your family, Grace. I am Edward's mother, and my money is mine. Earned it. I saved it. And I decide what to do with it, I said, keeping my tone calm, though inside I wanted to scream everything I'd held back for 15 years. Mom, please don't be like that. Grace just wanted to buy things we really need for the house. The TV in the living room is 8 years old. The couch is all worn out. The refrigerator is making weird noises. Edward intervened, trying to justify the unjustifiable. If you need those things, buy them with your own money. You both work. Edward makes good money as an engineer. Grace works at that clothing store. You have 2 salaries. Why do you need mine? I asked. Because we have expenses, Josephine. This house doesn't maintain itself. The mortgage is $1,200 a month, utilities another $300, food about $500, internet, phones, car insurance. It all adds up. There's nothing left at the end of the month. Grace whined in that victim tone she used so well. I give you $500 from my pension every month. That helps, I pointed out. $500 is nothing, Josephine. That barely covers your food, Grace said with contempt. Then let me go. Let me buy my apartment with my money and stop being a burden to you, I said, and I saw Grace and Edward exchange a quick glance. A look I couldn't interpret then but understood perfectly later. Mom, don't say that. Nobody wants you to leave. This is your home, Edward said, but his words sounded hollow, rehearsed. This is not my home, Edward. You said it yourself this morning. This is your house. I just live here, I said, my voice finally breaking. Oh, for God's sake, don't start with the drama, Josephine. Nobody said that. Edward was just talking. Grace rolled her eyes. He did say it, and he's right. That's why I want to leave. I want my own place where I'm the owner, where I pay my own bills, where nobody makes me feel like I'm a burden. And the tears finally started to roll down my cheeks. Mom, you can't live alone. You're 68 years old. What if you get sick? What if you fall? Who's going to take care of you? Edward asked, his concern fake, angering me more than his insults. I'm 68, not 108. I'm perfectly healthy. I can take care of myself. I did it for 40 years before I came to live here. I replied, wiping my tears with the back of my hand. But it's different now, Mom. You're older now. You need to be with family, Edward insisted. What I need is respect and dignity, and I don't have that here, I said, getting up from the armchair. Look, Josephine, let's be honest. Grace began, arms crossed. You have nowhere to go. You have no other family. Your friends are in the same boat as you or worse. You have no one. If you leave here, you'll end up alone in some sad little apartment, eating alone, watching TV alone, dying alone. Is that what you want? Her words were like slaps, each one designed to destroy what little self-esteem I had left. The worst part? She was right about something. My sister had died 5 years ago, my parents decades ago. My few friends were scattered, each with her own life. I'd rather be alone and at peace than accompanied and miserable, I replied, surprised by my own bravery. Oh, how dramatic. Nobody's making you miserable, Josephine. We're giving you a roof over your head, food company. But of course, nothing is ever enough for you. Grace scoffed. You don't give me anything. I pay with my pension, with my work in this house, with my dignity. I shouted, raising my voice for the first time. Your pension doesn't even cover half of what you cost us here. And washing a few dishes and sweeping a little isn't work. Anyone can do that. Grace yelled, completely losing her composure. Then anyone can do it. Hire someone. I'm leaving, I declared, walking towards my room. You're not going anywhere, Mom. Stop being ridiculous. Edward yelled after me. I locked myself in my room, listening as they continued to argue outside. Grace blamed Edward for being weak with me. Edward tried to calm her down. Both talked about me as if I were a problem to be solved, not a person. I sat on my bed for hours, listening as the house gradually returned to its usual silence. Grace had slammed her door shut. Edward knocked on mine twice more, but I didn't answer. I had nothing more to say to him at that moment. When night fell, and the house was utterly silent, I pulled out my old phone and dialed the only number I knew would comfort me. Linda. My lifelong friend. The only person who truly knew me. Josephine, what happened? It's almost 10 at night. Linda answered, her voice worried. And then I broke down. I told her everything. From the overheard conversation to the fight with Grace. From the $82,000 they tried to spend to the cruel words about my age and my loneliness. Linda listened without interrupting, letting me cry and vent like I hadn't in years. Josephine, listen to me carefully, Linda said when I finally ran out of words. Tomorrow morning you're coming to my house. You can stay with me as long as you need while you look for your apartment. You can't stay there anymore. That house is killing your soul. Linda, I can't impose on you like that. You live in a small apartment. There's no space, I sob. I have a sofa bed in the living room that's more comfortable than being in that house where they don't value you. Tomorrow, Josephine. Tomorrow you pack what you need and you come here. It's not a suggestion, it's an order. Linda's voice held that firmness she always had when she knew I needed a push. I barely slept that night. I stared at the ceiling of my tiny room, remembering how I had ended up here 20 years ago. Edward had just married Grace. They wanted a bigger house but couldn't afford the down payment. I sold my small apartment, the 2-bedroom I'd bought with so much effort, and gave the money to Edward. $50,000, my entire life's work up to that point. It's a loan, Mom. I'll pay you back in 2 years when I get a raise. He'd promised, his eyes shining. But 2 years passed, then 5, then 10. The loan was never mentioned again. When I brought it up, Edward would get annoyed, saying he gave me a roof and food, that it was worth more than the $50,000. Now I understood. I had been a fool. I had trusted my son blindly, and he had abused that trust. Worse, I had allowed it for 2 decades because I was afraid of being alone. Afraid Edward would reject me. Afraid of losing the only direct family I had left. But the fear of loneliness couldn't be stronger than my dignity. I couldn't keep living like this. Friday morning came. I rose earlier than usual, prepared breakfast as always, left everything ready on the table. But this time I didn't stay to serve them. I showered, dressed in my best clothes, and packed my things into 2 old suitcases I kept at the back of the closet. I didn't have much. Modest clothes, a few shoes, photographs, important documents, and a small wooden box holding my mother's wedding ring, silver earrings from my sister, a thin chain from my first paycheck. Everything fit into 2 suitcases. I heard Edward and Grace get up, heard their voices in the dining room, eating the breakfast I had prepared. Neither knocked on my door. Neither asked how I slept. It was as if I didn't exist unless they needed something. I waited for them to leave for work. Edward first at 8:30. Grace at 9. When her car engine faded away, I pulled my suitcases from the room. I walked through the house one last time, looking at every corner I had cleaned thousands of times. The kitchen where I'd spent countless hours cooking for a family that barely said thank you. The living room where I could never sit comfortably because it was Grace's space. The dining room where I always sat in the least comfortable chair. I left the house keys on the dining room table. Beside them, a note I'd written during the night. Edward, I'm leaving. I can't keep living in a house where my only value is my money. Thank you for these 20 years, but I need to get my dignity back. Don't look for me. When I have my new apartment, I'll send you the address. I love you, but I love myself more. Mom. I called a cab and waited outside with my 2 suitcases. My neighbor, Mr. Ernest, watering his garden, looked at me curiously. Good morning, Josephine. Going on a trip? He asked kindly. Something like that, Mr. Ernest. Something like that. I replied with a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. The cab arrived in 10 minutes. The young driver helped me with my suitcases. Where to, ma'am? I gave him Linda's address, watching the city streets I had lived in my entire life pass by. Every block took me further away from Edward and Grace. And strangely, instead of sadness, I felt a soaring relief. Linda was waiting at the door of her building. When I arrived, she hugged me so tight I could barely breathe. And that hug made me cry again. But this time they weren't tears of pain but of gratitude. You're here. You're safe now, Linda whispered, stroking my hair like I was a child. Her apartment was small, as she'd said. A living dining room, 1 bedroom, a kitchen, a bathroom. But it was clean, tidy, and above all it was filled with peace. No tension in the air, no contemptuous looks, no hurtful words waiting to attack. The sofa bed is all yours. It's not much, but it's comfortable, and this house is your house as long as you need to stay, Linda said, showing me where to put my things. Linda, I don't know how to thank you for this, I said, my voice broken. You don't have to thank me for anything. That's what friends are for. Besides, you'll keep me company. Ever since I became a widow 3 years ago, this house has been too quiet, Linda said with a warm smile. We spent the rest of the morning organizing my things. Linda made space for me in her closet, showed me everything in the kitchen, made me feel welcome in 1,000 small ways. At 1 p.m. my phone started ringing. It was Edward. I didn't answer. He called again and again. Finally, he left a voicemail. Mom, where are you? I came home for lunch and you're not here. I saw your note. Please call me. I'm worried. Worried. How interesting that he was worried now. He wasn't worried yesterday when he yelled at me. He wasn't worried when his wife tried to steal $82,000 from me. He wasn't worried for 20 years while I withered away in that house. Linda looked at me. Are you going to answer him? She asked. Not yet. I need to think clearly first. I need to decide what I'm going to do with my life before I talk to him. I replied, turning off my phone. That afternoon, Linda and I sat on her small balcony with coffee. From there, we could see the city life moving on the streets below. You know what hurts the most, Linda? I said after a long silence. It's not the money they tried to spend. It's not even that they disrespected me. What hurts the most is that I lost 20 years of my life trying to earn my son's love. And now I realize that love was always conditional on what I could give him. Linda took my hand, her own also wrinkled by the years but strong and warm. Josephine, listen to me. You didn't lose 20 years trying to earn his love. You gave 20 years of unconditional love, which is very different. You're not the problem. The problem is that Edward and that woman didn't know how to value what they had. Linda said wisely. But I'm his mother. Mothers are supposed to sacrifice for their children, I said, still clinging to that guilt that had been instilled in me my whole life. Mothers should love their children, yes, but children should also love their mothers. Love isn't a one-way street, Josephine. And sacrifice has a limit. When the sacrifice is killing your soul, it's not love anymore. It's self-destruction, Linda replied firmly. She was right. She always was. Linda had been my friend since we worked in the same textile factory 40 years ago. She knew me better than anyone. She'd seen my marriage fail. She'd seen me raise Edward alone. She'd seen me slowly fade away in that house. Now you need to think about yourself. About what you want. About what Josephine needs to be happy, Linda continued. I want my apartment. I want my own place where no one can make me feel like I'm in the way. Where I can have coffee in the morning without feeling like I'm using someone else's electricity. Where I can watch TV without being told I'm taking up the couch, I said. As I spoke, I felt something inside me grow stronger. Then that's what we're going to get. Tomorrow morning we start looking for apartments, Linda declared with determination. That night I slept on Linda's sofa bed. And it was the best night's sleep I'd had in years. No tension. No fear of footsteps outside my door. No anxiety, wondering what new humiliation awaited me. On Saturday morning my phone was still off, but I could imagine the number of missed calls. I didn't care. For the first time in 2 decades, I was my priority. Linda and I had a quiet breakfast, talking about everything and nothing, laughing about old memories, making plans. Afterwards, we got dressed and went out. We had marked 5 apartments to see that day, all within my budget. The first was too dark. The second in a rundown building. The third was perfect but on the 4th floor with no elevator. The 4th had plumbing issues. But the fifth stole my heart the moment I walked in. It was a 2nd floor apartment in a well-maintained, secure building. A living room with a large picture window overlooking a small park. A perfectly equipped open-plan kitchen. A spacious bedroom with a closet. A clean, functional bathroom. It wasn't big, about 650 square feet. But it was cozy, bright, and had a peaceful energy. How much are you asking for it? I asked the owner, Mr. Benjamin. $55,000. It includes a parking space downstairs and a small storage unit in the basement. The HOA fees are $100 a month. $55,000. I could pay for it in cash and still have $75,000 left to live comfortably for emergencies for my final years. Can I see it again? I asked. Mr. Benjamin nodded kindly. I walked through each space, imagining my life there. My bed in the bedroom, my clothes in the closet, my few photographs on the walls. I imagined making coffee in that kitchen, sitting by that window to read, sleeping peacefully. I saw my future in those empty walls. And that future was bright. I'll take it. I want to buy it, I said in a firm voice. Mr. Benjamin smiled broadly. Excellent decision, ma'am. It's an apartment with very good energy. We need to do the legal paperwork. Do you have a trusted lawyer? I know a good one, Linda intervened. My cousin's son is a lawyer. He's honest and charges a fair price. Perfect. Then we can meet on Monday to start the paperwork. It usually takes a week to complete the whole legal process. 1 week. In 1 week, that apartment would be mine. My name on the deed. I would be a homeowner. Not a burden living for free in someone else's house. We left the apartment with a signed agreement and a $5,000 down payment I paid by check. Linda and I hugged on the street like 2 excited little girls. You did it, Josephine. You're going to have your own place. Linda shouted, not caring who heard us. I did it. I repeated, a huge smile spreading across my face. I really did it. We returned to Linda's apartment, euphoric, making decorating plans. It was then, in the midst of that happiness, that I decided to turn on my phone. I had 32 missed calls from Edward, 17 from Grace, and over 40 text messages. They started worried. Mom, where are you? Please answer. We're frantic. But then the tone changed. Mom, this is ridiculous. Stop the drama. We need to talk about important things. And the last ones were outright threatening. If you don't answer, I'm going to the police. This is abuse towards us. You're going to have to come back. You have nowhere to go. Linda read the messages over my shoulder, snorting with indignation. That boy has lost his mind. Abuse towards them. As if they haven't been abusing you for years. I have to talk to him, but by text. I don't want to hear his voice yet, I said, taking a deep breath. I sat on the sofa and wrote a long message, choosing each word carefully. Edward, I'm fine. I'm in a safe place with a friend. I needed to get out of that house to recover my mental health. For 20 years I lived feeling like a burden. And yesterday's incident was the last straw. I bought my own apartment. I'm moving in a week. This isn't a punishment for you. It's a decision of self-love for me. When I'm settled, I'll give you my address and we can talk calmly. I love you, but I have to do this. Mom. I pressed send. I saw the 2 check marks, then they turned blue. The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally his reply. Mom, this is crazy. You can't just buy an apartment like that. Who's going to take care of you? Who's going to help you if you get sick? Have you thought about that? Besides, Grace is very upset. She says you owe her an apology for the embarrassment at the mall. We need you to come home and talk about this like adults. I read the message 3 times. No apology from him. No acknowledgement of what they had done. Just more manipulation. More attempts to make me feel guilty. More fake concern disguised as love. Are you going to answer? Linda asked. Yes, I said, and wrote a short but clear reply. Edward, I'm 68 years old, not 98. I can take perfectly good care of myself, and I don't owe Grace any apology. She tried to spend $82,000 of my money without my permission. If anyone should apologize, it's you too. We'll talk when I'm ready. Mom. After sending that, I turned the phone off again. Linda was right, I needed space to think. Sunday was a day of absolute peace. Linda and I went to church, something I hadn't been able to do in years because Sundays were when Grace organized her big family breakfasts, and I had to cook for everyone. Afterwards, we walked through the flea market, looking for second-hand furniture. I found a small but beautiful dining table for $80, a set of pots for $30, some plates, glasses, towels. Linda insisted on buying me new sheets. So you can start your new life with new clean sheets with no history, she said, paying. I cried again, but from emotion. We stored everything in Linda's building storage unit, waiting for my moving day. Every object I acquired was another step towards my freedom. On Monday, I met with Ferdinand, Linda's cousin's son, the lawyer. He was serious but kind. He reviewed my documents, confirmed the apartment status. Mrs. Josephine, everything is in order. No debts, no liens. Mr. Benjamin is the sole legitimate owner. We can close the sale next Friday. Are you sure you want to pay in cash? You could get a mortgage if you prefer not to use up so much of your capital, he explained. No, I want to pay in cash. I want it to be completely mine. No debts, no mortgage. I've waited my whole life for this moment, I said with conviction. I understand. Then on Friday at 10 a.m., we'll meet here in my office to sign the deeds. You'll need to bring the payment for $50,000 plus $5,000 for notary fees and taxes. The $5,000 down payment you already made will be deducted from the total. $55,000 in total. Less than half of my savings. I could do it. I left the law office feeling stronger than ever. I walked through the city, observing everything with new eyes. The shops, the parks, the buildings. Everything looked different when you knew you were building your own life, not just surviving in someone else's. When I got back to Linda's, I briefly turned on my phone. Edward had sent only one more message. The tone had completely changed. Mom, I talked to Grace. She's willing to apologize if you do too. We can forget this whole misunderstanding if you come home today. We miss you. The house isn't the same without you. Please think carefully before you make a mistake you can't reverse. A mistake I can't reverse. As if buying my own home was a mistake. As if reclaiming my dignity was something to regret. As if 20 years of feeling invisible wasn't the real mistake. I didn't reply. I had nothing more to say to him for the moment. The next few days passed in a mix of nerves and excitement. Linda and I continued buying things for my apartment. A small comfortable sofa from a garage sale for $120. A used excellent condition queen-size bed for $200. I also went to the bank to arrange the payment. The teller Ramona was very patient. Ma'am, this is a considerable amount. Are you sure this is a legitimate transaction? We don't want you to be a victim of fraud, she asked, genuinely concerned. It's not fraud, dear. I'm buying my first home at 68. I replied with pride. Ramona smiled broadly. That's beautiful, ma'am. Congratulations. My grandmother also bought her house at 70 after divorcing my grandfather. She told me they were the best years of her life. Her words gave me hope. It wasn't too late. It was never too late to start over. On Thursday night, the day before signing the deed, Edward showed up at Linda's building. I don't know how he got the address. He buzzed the intercom insistently until Linda answered. Who is it? She asked dryly. It's Edward, Josephine's son. I need to speak with my mom. I heard his voice through the speaker. Linda looked at me, asking with her eyes what I wanted to do. I took a deep breath. Let him come up, but you stay here with me. Linda nodded. Minutes later he knocked. When I opened the door I was surprised. He looked so worn out. Deep dark circles under his eyes, clothes wrinkled, hair messy. He didn't look like the successful engineer he pretended to be. Mom, he said, his voice breaking. Edward. I replied, not moving from the doorway, not inviting him in. Can we talk? He asked, looking past me at Linda, who stood with her arms crossed, a silent guardian. Here is fine, I said. Edward sighed, running a hand through his hair. Mom, this got out of control. I know Grace and I were wrong. We shouldn't have taken your card without permission. But you didn't have to leave like that, without warning, leaving us worried. He began, that tone he used when he wanted to seem reasonable but was really just manipulating. Edward, I left you a note explaining exactly why I was leaving. It wasn't impulsive. It was necessary, I replied, keeping calm. But Mom, we're family. Families forgive each other. Families solve their problems together, not by running away, he said, taking a step closer. Families also respect each other, Edward. And you haven't respected me in years. It's just that I was so used to the mistreatment that I stopped noticing, I said, feeling the words come out with more force than I expected. Mistreatment, Mom? We never mistreated you. We gave you a roof, food, everything you needed. Edward protested, raising his voice. You gave me a room the size of a pantry. You made me feel like every bite of food I ate was a favor. You treated me like a maid, not a mother. And when I saved money from 40 years of work, you tried to steal it, I said. Each word was like releasing a weight I had carried for too long. We weren't going to steal anything. It was just going to be some things for the house where you also live. It's not stealing, Mom. It's sharing as a family. Edward shouted, losing his composure. $82,000 isn't sharing, Edward. It's stealing. And I never authorized that expense, I replied, my voice still even, which seemed to frustrate him even more. Fine. Okay, I admit it was a lot. Grace got excited seeing all those things on sale, but we can fix this. Come home and I promise that none of this will ever happen again, he said, changing tactics, now pleading. I'm not coming back, Edward. Tomorrow I sign the deed to my new apartment. I'm moving this weekend. I've already made my decision, I said, and watched his face shift from pleading to shock. You already bought an apartment? Without consulting me, Mom? That's crazy. What if you got scammed? What if it's a bad deal? I should have checked those things with you, he panicked. I have a notary, a lawyer. Everything is legal and verified. I didn't need your permission, Edward. I'm a 68-year-old adult with full mental capacity. I can make my own decisions, I explained patiently. Edward was silent for a moment, processing. His eyes darted around, calculating, thinking about his next move. And the money. How much do you have left after buying that apartment? He asked. And there it was. The real reason for his visit. He wasn't here for me. He was here for my money. That's none of your business, Edward, I replied firmly. Of course it's my business. I'm your son, your only family. I have a right to know how you're managing your finances. At your age, you can make errors in judgment, he said with that patronizing tone. At my age, I have more experience and wisdom than you. I've managed my money for 40 years without making mistakes. I'm not going to start now, I said, crossing my arms. Mom, let's be honest. That money is also a little bit mine. I've supported you for 20 years. I've given you a house, food, utilities that has a value. If we calculated, I probably owe you little to nothing, Edward said. His words hit me like a bucket of ice water. Linda stepped forward. Young man, I think it's time for you to leave. You heard your mother. She's made her decision, and you have no right to her money. Linda intervened, her voice firm. You stay out of this, ma'am. This is between my mom and me. Edward replied rudely. This is my house, and I can get involved whenever I please, and I'm going to ask you to leave right now or I'm calling security, Linda said, taking out her phone. Edward looked at me with a mixture of anger and desperation. Is this what you want, Mom? To break up our family? To let strangers get between us? He asked, pointing at Linda. Linda is not a stranger. She's been my friend for 40 years. She's been by my side in times when you didn't even exist. And no, Edward, I'm not breaking up the family. The family broke when you stopped seeing me as your mother and started seeing me as your ATM, I said, feeling tears threaten to spill. But I held them back. I can't believe you're doing this. Grace was right about you. She said you were selfish, that you only thought about yourself, and I defended you. What a fool I was. He spat, venom in every word. Those words hurt more than I wanted to admit. But they also confirmed what I already knew. Grace had poisoned my son against me for years, and he had let her. If that's what you think of me, then it's better that I get out of your life. I don't want to be a burden to anyone, I said, my voice trembling. Fine, perfect. Go to your apartment. Live alone. But don't come running when you get sick or need help. Don't come back when you realize you've made a mistake, Edward said, turning to leave. Edward, I called out, and he stopped without turning around. I love you. I'll always love you. You're my son, but I can no longer live sacrificing my dignity for your comfort. I hope one day you understand that. Edward didn't reply. He just kept walking towards the elevator. I watched him press the button and disappear behind the closing doors. And with those doors, a chapter of my life also closed. Linda hugged me as I finally allowed myself to cry. I cried for the 20 lost years, for the broken relationship with my son, for the family that could have been but never was. But I also cried with relief, because I knew I had made the right decision even though it hurt. I barely slept that night, tossing and turning, replaying the conversation, questioning if I had been too harsh, if I should have given him another chance. But every time I thought about going back, I remembered the 20 years of small and large humiliations. I remembered the attempted theft. I remembered all the times they made me feel invisible. No, I couldn't go back. For the first time in my life, I had to choose myself. Friday dawned sunny and beautiful, as if the universe was celebrating with me. Linda and I dressed in our best clothes. She insisted on accompanying me to the lawyer's office. This is one of the most important days of your life, Josephine. You're not going to live it alone, she said, putting on her cream-colored silk blouse. We arrived 15 minutes early. Mr. Benjamin and Ferdinand were already there. Good morning, Mrs. Josephine. Ready to be a homeowner? Ferdinand asked warmly. More than ready, I replied with a huge smile. The process took almost 2 hours. I signed so many papers I lost count. Ferdinand patiently explained each document. When it was time to hand over the $50,000 check, my hand trembled slightly. It was almost everything I had. But I looked at Linda, who was smiling at me with pride, and I remembered why I was doing this. I placed the check on the table. Mr. Benjamin reviewed it, nodded, and Ferdinand officially processed it. Very well, Mrs. Josephine. With this, we complete the transaction. This apartment is now legally yours. Here are the deeds with your name, the keys, and the building documents. Congratulations on your new home, Ferdinand said, handing me a thick envelope and a keychain with 3 keys. I took the keys in my hand and held them as if they were the most valuable treasure in the world. And to me they were. Those keys represented freedom, dignity, independence. They represented the end of a dark chapter, and the beginning of something new. Thank you, Ferdinand. Thank you, Mr. Benjamin. You don't know what this means to me, I said, my voice breaking with emotion. Believe me, I do, Mrs. Josephine. I've seen many transactions in my life, but few with as much emotional weight as this one. I hope you'll be very happy in your new home, Ferdinand said with sincerity. We left the lawyer's office, and Linda practically screamed with excitement on the street. You did it. You own your own home. At 68, you've taken your life back, she shouted as she hugged me, and we spun around on the sidewalk like two crazy little girls. People passing by looked at us curiously. Some smiled. An elderly woman stopped and asked what we were celebrating. I just bought my first apartment, I told her with pride. Oh, how wonderful. Congratulations, dear. It's never too late to fulfill your dreams, the woman said with a warm smile before continuing on her way. Linda and I went straight to the apartment. I wanted to see it again now that it was officially mine. I opened the door with trembling hands, put the key in the lock, turned it and pushed. The apartment was exactly as I remembered it. Empty, smelling clean, filled with light from the large window. But now it looked different. Now it wasn't just a nice space. It was my space. My home. I walked slowly through every corner, touching the walls, imagining where I would put each piece of furniture, visualizing my life there. The table by the window where I would have coffee every morning. The sofa where I would rest without fear of someone telling me I was in the way. The bed in my room where I would sleep in peace. It's perfect, Josephine. It's absolutely perfect, Linda said, tears in her eyes. Yes, it is, I replied, also crying, but this time from pure happiness. We spent the rest of the day cleaning, making it spotless before my things arrived. On Saturday morning, Linda organized a small army of help. Her niece Antonia, who worked for a moving company, arrived with her truck and 2 friends. It was beautiful to see my empty apartment fill with life. The dining table looked perfect by the window. The sofa fit exactly in the living room. The bed looked majestic in my room with the new sheets Linda had given me. Antonia and her friends were incredibly kind, refusing to charge me for the full move. Mrs. Josephine, any friend of my Aunt Linda is a friend of ours. Just pay us for the gas and we're good, Antonia said with a genuine smile. I gave them $100 despite their protests. It was the least I could do. By noon, the apartment was completely set up. It wasn't luxurious, but it was cozy and functional. Linda insisted on staying to help me organize the kitchen. Tomorrow we'll go to the market and buy food to fill your refrigerator, she said. Linda, you've already done so much for me. I don't know how I'll ever repay you, I said, overwhelmed by her generosity. You're not going to repay me anything. Friends don't get paid. They support each other. Besides, you do the same for me. She was right. I would. That night, my first night in my own apartment, Linda went home after making sure 1,000 times that I would be okay. I stood in the middle of my living room, still unable to believe all of this was mine. I made myself a cup of tea in my kitchen using my teapot, my cup, my water. I sat in my armchair by my window and looked outside. The park was lit. People walked their dogs. Others enjoyed the cool night. For the first time in 20 years, I felt no anxiety, no tension, no fear of footsteps approaching with complaints or demands. There was only peace, silence, freedom. I allowed myself to cry again. But these tears were different. They were not of pain or anger. They were of relief, gratitude, and hope. I had managed to get out. I had managed to save myself. Sunday was the most peaceful day I'd had in years. I woke up without an alarm, letting my body rest. The first thing I saw was the ceiling of my own room in my own house. I made coffee. Its aroma filled the apartment and made me smile. I took my cup to the window, sitting there for an hour just looking, thinking, feeling. Linda arrived at noon with a huge pot of chicken soup. So you'll have food for the whole week. And I also brought fresh bread from the bakery, she said. We had lunch at my new table, chatting about everything and nothing. Have you heard anything from Edward? Linda asked cautiously. No, and I don't expect to. He made it very clear that he thought I was selfish for making this decision. He probably needs time to process it. Or maybe he'll never understand. Either way, I can't do anything about it now, I replied. Does it hurt? Linda asked, looking at me directly. A lot. He's my son. It will always hurt. But the pain of losing him is less than the pain of losing myself, I said honestly. Linda nodded, understanding. There was nothing more to say. The following days were about adapting. I learned the routines of my building, met some neighbors, discovered the nearby shops. There was a market 2 blocks away, a bakery 3 blocks away, and a pharmacy run by a kind lady named Grace. Ironically, a completely different Grace. I created a simple but satisfying routine. I would wake early, make coffee, and have breakfast looking at the park. Then chores at my own pace. In the afternoons, I would read or watch TV shows I chose without negotiating. At night, I cooked small portions of meals I enjoyed. A week after moving, I received a message from Edward. I hadn't blocked him. Part of me still hoped my son would come to his senses. The message said, Mom, Grace and I went to the house you left. We need to know if you're coming back to pick anything up, or if we can dispose of the things left in your room. Dispose? What a cold word. As if 20 years of my life could just be disposed of. I replied. Edward, you can donate or throw away whatever is left. I've already taken everything that was important to me. The old clothes and junk that are left I don't need. There was no reply after that. 2 weeks later, I was at the market buying vegetables when I saw Grace. She saw me too. For a moment we just stared at each other from a distance. I expected her to approach to say something hurtful to cause a scene, but she just turned and walked away in the opposite direction. It was strange to feel relief instead of pain. It meant I had really managed to close that chapter. A month after moving, Linda organized a small dinner party at my apartment. She invited her niece Antonia, her cousin Sarah, and 2 other friends. 6 of us women, different ages, sharing food, laughter and stories. And you, Josephine, what dreams do you have now that you have your own house? Antonia asked with genuine curiosity. The question took me by surprise. I had been so focused on surviving, on escaping, on settling down, that I hadn't thought about dreams beyond having my own space. I don't know, I answered honestly. I think my dream was this, to have my own place. But now that I have it, I guess I can start dreaming about other things. Well, you have to dream big, Josephine. You're still young. 68 is nothing. My mom is 82 and she just learned to swim. Sarah said enthusiastically. That night, after everyone had left, I kept thinking about that question. What did I want to do with the rest of my life? I had my apartment. I had $75,000 in the bank. I had my health. I had time. What would I do with all of that? The answer came a week later. Unexpectedly. I was in the park sitting on a bench enjoying the afternoon sun, when an elderly woman sat down next to me. She must have been at least 80, but moved with energy and joy. Beautiful day, isn't it? She said with a smile. Beautiful, I replied. Do you live around here? She asked, pointing towards the buildings. Yes, I just moved in a month ago in that building, 2nd floor. I said, pointing. Oh, that's nice. I live on the other side of the park. I come here every day to walk. The doctors say it's good for the heart, but I come because I like to see the people, see the children play. Watch life go by, the woman said philosophically. We talked for almost an hour. Her name was Antonia. Widowed for 10 years, 5 children, all in different cities. She had learned to live alone and said this was the happiest time of her life. When I was married, I always had to think about him first. What did he want to eat? What did he want to do? How did he feel? When my children were young, everything was for them. There was never time for me. But now I can do what I want, when I want, how I want, and it's liberating. Her eyes shined. Her words resonated deeply with me. It was exactly what I was beginning to discover. The following months were of pure rediscovery. I enrolled in a knitting class at the community center, something I had always wanted to do but never had time for. I met a wonderful group of women, all in similar situations, all rediscovering who they were beyond being mothers, wives, or caregivers. I also started walking every morning in the park, half an hour each day. That became my sacred time. I listened to the birds, felt the fresh air, watched the city wake up. It was meditative, healing. Linda and I developed a routine of having lunch together every Wednesday. Those lunches became the highlight of my week. We cooked, experimented with new recipes, laughed. 3 months after I moved, I received another message from Edward. This time it was different. Mom, I know we haven't spoken in months. I know things ended badly. I've been thinking a lot about everything that happened. Grace and I are having problems. She wants things I can't give her. She's always dissatisfied. Always wants more. And I realized something. She treated you that way too. As if what you gave was never enough. I think I understand now why you left. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted you to know that I understand. I read the message several times. Part of me wanted to reply immediately, to run and hug him, to rebuild everything. But another part, the part that had learned to protect myself, urged caution. I showed the message to Linda during our Wednesday lunch. What are you going to do? She asked. I'm going to reply, but with clear boundaries. He's my son and I love him, but I can no longer be the mother who sacrifices everything for him. If he wants a relationship with me, it has to be on my terms, I said with a firmness that surprised me. I wrote a careful reply. Edward, I appreciate your message and your honesty. Understanding what happened is the first step. If you want to rebuild our relationship, you are welcome, but it has to be different. I am no longer the mom who lets herself be manipulated or mistreated. I have my own life now, my own space, my own boundaries. If you can respect that, we can start over. I love you, but I love myself more now. Mom. His reply came the next day. I understand, Mom. Could I visit you someday just to see how you are? What's your new apartment like? Without Grace. Just me. We agreed he would come the following Sunday. I spent the whole week nervous, obsessively cleaning, mentally cooking and recooking what I would say. On Sunday, he arrived promptly at 3 p.m. When I opened the door, I saw a different Edward. Thinner, more gray hair. Tired but also softer eyes. Hi, Mom, he said, his voice trembling. Hi, son, I replied, and we hugged in the doorway. It was a long healing hug full of unsaid things. I showed him the apartment. He walked through each space, attentively touching the furniture, looking at the photographs, observing everything. "It's beautiful, Mom. It's small but cozy. It feels like you," he said with sincerity. We sat at my table by the window. I served him coffee and cookies. We talked for hours. Edward told me about his problems with Grace, how she constantly pressured him for more money, more things, more status. He told me he had started therapy to understand his own behavioral patterns. "The therapist made me see that I repeated with Grace the same thing Dad did to you. I let her treat you badly because I wanted to keep the peace in my marriage, without realizing I was sacrificing my relationship with you," Edward admitted, tears in his eyes. "Edward, your father and you are two different people. Your father abandoned us. You stayed, albeit in a distorted way. The fact that you recognize it now means you can change," I said, taking his hand across the table. "Can you forgive me someday?" he asked, looking at me directly. "I've already forgiven you, son. Forgiveness isn't for you. It's for me to free myself from resentment. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or going back to how we were. It means moving forward with healthier boundaries," I explained calmly. Edward nodded, understanding. "Does Grace know you're here?" I asked. "Yes, she didn't like it, but I no longer give her the power to decide over my relationships. That's another change I'm making," Edward replied with determination. Our relationship after that day was a slow but genuine reconstruction. Edward started visiting me every 2 weeks, always alone, always respectful of my space and my time. He asked about my life, my activities, my friends. He really listened to me, not just waiting for his turn to speak. 6 months later, Edward and Grace divorced. I wasn't surprised. Some relationships are built on toxic foundations that eventually collapse. Edward moved into a small apartment similar to mine, and began his own journey of self-discovery. Today, a year after moving into my apartment, I'm sitting in my armchair by the window, watching the sunset over the park. I have $75,000 in the bank untouched. My apartment is fully paid off. My $500 monthly pension covers my basic expenses. I live modestly but with dignity. Edward visits me every 2 weeks. Our relationship isn't perfect. Probably never will be. But it's honest. He's learning to be a better son. And I'm learning to be a mother with healthy boundaries. Linda is still my rock, my best friend, my chosen family. The women from my knitting class have become my social circle. I have plans to take a small trip next year, something I never allowed myself to do. My life is not extraordinary. I don't have luxuries or spectacular adventures. But I have something I didn't have for 20 years. Peace. I have my own space where no one makes me feel like I'm in the way. I have my own money that no one tries to steal. I have my own life that no one controls. Sometimes I look back and wonder what would have happened if I had the courage to leave sooner. But then I remember that every experience, even the painful ones, brought me here to this moment, to this peace. I'm 69 now. I don't know how many years I have left. But I know that every day I live in this apartment, in my own space with my own dignity intact, is a day one. It's a day lived for me. And that, after a lifetime of living for others, is more valuable than any amount of money in the bank.